In a very short time we have, let's see if we can unpack coups in Africa. I'm joined on Nigeria tonight by a professor of international relations and strategic studies at the University of Lagos, David Aworowa. Prof, thank you very much for giving us your time. Before we come to Nigeria, let's begin from the continent. Between 2020 and now, the military has seized power in 7 African countries, the last being Gabon earlier today. In your opinion, what are some of the main factors or underlying causes contributing to the occurrences of coup on the continent?
Thank you for having me. There are many of them. One of the most prominent is the attitude of the political leaders across the continent. Democracy is not supposed to be an end in itself, but a means to an end. And that end is the popular participation of the people in who governs them, the development of their respective countries, and the improvement of the quality of life of the people. These are the key things that democracy is supposed to produce and provide. But across Africa, that has not been the case. We have seen cases where African leaders have extended their stay in government and perpetuated their regimes illegally. Take, for instance, Guinea. It was the elongation of the term of former President Alpha Conde and the unrest that accompanied it that brought in the military to take over government in Guinea 2 years ago. And we have, a host of other things across the continent: corruption, inability to meet the needs of the people as key issues. So to summarize, 2 key things. 1, failure of African leaders generally to deliver the goods and improve the quality of life of their people. And of course, second, the ambition of the military. Let us not forget the fact that many of these people taking over are not doing so altruistically. They are only capitalizing on the failures of African leaders to seize power, which is why they have always tried to give an elongated transition to military rule. 3 years, 4 years, they propose.
Well, I want you to speak quickly. I want you to.
Why sometimes they become corrupt, like the leaders they overthrow.
I don't want to forget. I don't want you to forget. I want you to speak a little more on the perpetuation of constitutional coup. Why is it that there is a lot more condemnation for military coup than constitutional coup, like you just alluded to? What needs to be checked? Because regional bodies like ECOWAS, AU, they're quick to condemn military coup. But the cases you've talked about leaders who perpetuate themselves through, manipulating the constitution continues to reign.
So there is this element of hypocrisy on the part of leaders across the continent.
Go ahead. We lost you for a bit. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so that is fundamental, and it has played out in a similar fashion, across the continent. Take, for instance, also what happened in Gabon over the weekend, where elections were held. Ali Bongo, that's the deposed president, ensured that foreign observers were not allowed, to observe the electoral process. 2, the internet was shut down, so people could not, complain or reveal irregularities in the electoral process.
So that's where I'm trying to get to your thoughts. Prof, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but I want us to be precise because of time. I want you to speak on the fact that regional bodies that are helping to regulate what happens in our democracy seem not to speak up when these things happen. And then when there is a coup, you see statements of condemnation all around.
Yes, they don't speak up because they belong to a club. What has happened in Guinea was about to play out in Senegal, played out in Gabon. So they belong to a club of leaders who want to perpetuate themselves in power. And because of that, they do not stand on the moral high ground to condemn one of their own when these things happen. So, which is why people speak of hypocrisy on the part of African leaders on this matter. And this is one of the fundamental things that must change if democracy is to be sustained in Africa. Because by so doing, they provide, a veritable excuse, a pretext for the military adventurers to refer to and seize power. And when they seize power, they say, oh, there was a civilian coup before there was a military coup. This is the attitude that must change across Africa.
All right, let's take another angle to this. Most of the countries we've seen in recent times where military took power were former colonies of France, from Chad, Niger to Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, and now we have Gabon. Is there anything about the system there that is waking up these anti-democratic sentiments?
Yes, there are. Apart from the failure of the leaders to improve the quality of life of their people and ensure development, there is also the parasitic and exploitative neo-colonial dominance of France. And so in many of these countries, maybe except Gabon, the coups have been accompanied by a rejection of close relationship with France because of the antecedents, because of the continued dominance, the parasitic and neo-colonial exploitation, which has continued in these colonies after independence. So that is why there is that trend, that one finds. But that is not to say that, coups will be limited to former French colonies. Countries like Equatorial Guinea, where one leader has governed for 4 decades. Countries like Cameroon, you watch it. So it is not something that is limited to, that will be limited to former French colonies if things do not change. But they have been concentrated there because, apart from the fact that these leaders have not been able to improve the quality of life of their people, there is also the feeling, which is correct, that France has contributed to their woes by collaborating with the civilian leaders to continue to exploit them.
I really wish we can explore this a lot more, but in the time that we have, we always look for maybe a way forward. What more should AU? You're saying they are all in clique, but that can't be if we need to move forward. So what more, in your opinion, should AU and even the United Nations be doing to discourage coups, saying that sanctions alone haven't done much?
Yes, just as I said earlier, what needs to be done in addition to condemning coups and sanctioning countries where coups have taken place is to ensure that the good governance is encouraged. Everything must be done to encourage good governance. There's hardly anywhere there is good governance, the needs of the people are met, the quality of life is improved, where you see coups. These coups almost always take place in countries where there is dissent, there is disenchantment, there is cynicism, optimism has given way to pessimism, and hope has given way to despair. This has to change. And then second, as we have said before, leaders must stick to their terms. It's one of the fundamental tenets of democracy.
All right, let's quickly bring it home. Let's quickly bring it home, sir. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I keep interrupting you, but let's bring it home quickly. There are whispers already. People are talking. Social media is abuzz with it. Nigeria is what I'm talking about. 27 years, Nigeria of the 63 years of independence were controlled by the military, including a 3-year civil war. What do you consider the reasons why Nigerians, not just the government now, everyone, should work to protect democracy now? In just a minute, if you can, sir.
Yeah, there is a need to work to protect democracy because forget about this euphoria. We have had military leaders before across Africa. They didn't do better than the civilians. And why democracy must be protected? One, it gives the opportunity for popular participation in governance, the opportunity for people to select their leaders. That's one. And then two, it has this accompanying element of separation of powers. The more powers are in the hands of a few people, the more autocratic and authoritarian they become. So democracy is still the best option if it is practiced the way it is sketched out in theory. Once these things are followed, is the best, which is why Nigeria must going to work hard to ensure that democracy is protected.
Prof, thank you very much for giving us your time.
Thank you very much.